Subcommittee. My name's Rabbi Khatun, I'm the Governance Officer. If I can just go through the protocol for remote hearings. Only speak when invited to by the Chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the Chair. Please ensure that your mics are muted when you are not speaking. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated timeframes. If referring to any written submissions, please refer to the specific page number in the agenda pack. Any new evidence can only be submitted at the discretion of the Chair and the agreement of all parties. If you're having any technical difficulties, please use the chat function to alert the meeting or dial in using the details in the invitation. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. Once the application has been considered, any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing. Please do so promptly so that councillors will have the opportunity to deliberate and make a decision. Each party will be notified of the decision within 5 working days. However, if you contact the licensing service the following day, you will be given a skeleton decision. If I can start off with the first item on the agenda, can we elect a chair, please?
I nominate Councillor Smith.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Garbett. Well, welcome everyone to this Licensing Subcommittee E meeting on Thursday, the 13th of October at 2 o'clock. You will see your agenda in your pack if you've got one. I think we'll just go around quickly and just introduce ourselves before we get on with things. So I'm Councillor Smith. I'm a councillor in Stoke Newington Ward and also the chair of licensing. Councillor Garbett.
Councillor Garbett, Dalston Ward councillor and member of Licensing Committee.
Yeah, Amanda, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Chair. I'm having a problem with my camera, so I'm going to have to leave the meeting and come back in a minute, if that's okay. So I do apologise.
Okay, well, we'll just finish the introductions and hopefully we'll be back by the time we get round to you. Okay, brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, so who we got? We got Suba.
I'm Suba Sri, I'm a licensing officer.
Fantastic. And Mr. Chewett.
I'm David Tier. I'm team leader, licensing technical support.
And Amanda.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Amanda Griggs. I'm from Police Licensing.
Thank you, PC Griggs. Great, thank you very much. And Channing.
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Channing Riviere, Principal Licensing Officer.
Fantastic. And we've heard from Rabia. And could we have, is it Mr. Hopkins? Is it Hopkins? Graham Hopkins, is that right?
Yes, Chair. Good afternoon. I'm Graham Hopkins from GT Licensing Consultants, and Mr. Salmon, the applicant, is immediately to my left. I'll just get him to show himself to the camera.
Okay, nice to see you. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And is it Hassan? Are you just on mute, Hassan? Would you like to introduce yourself? Yeah, I think you've frozen there. And then we have Mario as well, who's our sort of IT expert. So thank you, Mario, for all you do. Hassan, are you available? Can you speak? Can you turn your microphone on? He's gone. Okay, well, we can go back. Hassan, can you introduce yourself? Turn your microphone on.
Yeah, hello, Chair. It's Hassan Chevik, the owner of Turquoise Kitchen on Mare Street.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. So you can wait for the next one then. Fantastic. Thank you for that. And of course, we have Amanda. Would you like to introduce yourself, Amanda, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda North from Legal Services, supporting members this afternoon.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. So we'll just go through the agenda. So agenda item 1 is the election of chair, which has been done. Agenda item 2 is apologies for absence. We haven't received any. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest?
No, declarations
No,
of interest.
and same with me. I don't have any either. Agenda item 4 is where I kind of outline the hearing procedure. So this is what happens. So step 1 is the appointment of chair, which we've done. Step 2, the licensing officer will outline the report. Step 3, the applicant will then present their case in support of their application. Step 4, we will hear from responsible authorities. In this case, we have the police, licensing, no others, although they have made a written submission, which we have already read. Step 6 is a discussion, which takes place over 15 minutes. All the other phases are 5 minutes each, and I'll be relatively strict on that. Step 7, closing remarks. Step 8, final clarification. And then step 9 is where we ask the parties to leave, and then we will sit back and deliberate our decision. So moving on swiftly, we'll move straight to step 2. And can I ask the licensing officer, please, to outline the report for this particular case, which is the King of Falafel, 297 Old Street, a variation on their license. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, licensing service are receipt of an application for the variation of the premises license under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 for the King of Falafel, 297 Old Street, to extend the late night refreshment until 2 a.m., Monday to Sunday, as stated within the report. Since the draft of the report, the applicant has submitted additional information in which they have reduced their hours till 1 a.m. from Sunday to Wednesday and proposed some conditions, and this document has been circulated. Representation still remains from the police, licensing, and other persons. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Suba. So if I could now invite the applicant to present your case in support of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I can start by telling you that Mr. Salmon took this shop over in April 22, and the license was transferred to him in July after he got that sorted out. It's a takeaway restaurant that provides halal food, and they do actually have a 5-star rating from Environmental Health. Mr. Salmon, Chair, is an experienced operator. He and his partner have a similar outlet in Camden Town within the Camden Town CIZ. They've had that for 15 years, and I can say they have got a good record. They've had no complaints, no issues arising, no breaches of the license. The chef, who I've just spoken to, has got 27 years experience working for Breakfast Club. And Mr. Salmon himself was a licensed store supervisor for 4 years. He could get his license reinstated, of course, but at the moment he's a restaurateur, and I think he finds that stressful enough. He denies any breaches of the license at this premises. I have spoken to PC Griggs today and to Mr. Revere, so we have engaged with them. There were issues arising at the shop prior to Mr. Salmon taking over, but he's adamant that he's not breached the license. His policy is to pull the shutters down at 5 to 12 on the current license, turn the lights off, and everybody's customers obviously after midnight, or after 5 to. We have reduced, taking into account of things, we have reduced the hours, as you heard, Sunday to Wednesday that we're requesting to 1 o'clock, but Thursday to Saturday and bank holiday Sundays we would like to keep at 2. The full list of robust conditions on the licence are remaining, except we're asking that you look at conditions 12 and 13, which are currently starting at 10 o'clock, 2200 hours, whereas licensing, of course, for LNR starts at 2300 hours. So in effect, in our submission, they'd be unenforceable. So we'd ask you to put them to 2300 hours so that they can at least have the tables and chairs in the restaurant until 11 o'clock. There is no dining service after 11, and currently they do not provide any form of delivery service, which is why I haven't offered conditions to that. The app that Mr. Salmon has quite simply doesn't work in Old Street. We are proposing to have, as an additional...
Sorry, Mr. Hopkins, could you just repeat that bit? I missed a bit of it.
Sorry.
Just the last bit about the deliveries.
Yeah, there's currently no plans to have delivery. They did have an app for Just Eats, but it doesn't work in their part of Old Street. So he's not pursued that. So all we're looking at is customer collections, pre-ordered customer collections, and walk-in service. We're proposing to have SIA from an SIA door supervisor from 11 till 20 minutes after close. On the application, amended application, says Friday, Saturday, bank holiday Sundays, but we will actually have them Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if you minded to grant the variation to 2 o'clock. And that will certainly aid in orderly movements of customers going into and out of the premises, keeping heavily intoxicated people out who they don't want, the alcohol's not taken into the premises, and helping the orderly dispersal of people and make sure that people don't loiter outside to eat their food but head off home. And also don't walk in the road, is something the police have raised and we have seen ourselves. There's a dispersal policy as another tool has been proposed and put forward, which I think will, if the staff will all be trained in it, and including the doorman, and they'll all be tasked to implement it. So that will help further in getting people in, served and out. This food, for example, is kept hot. It's falafel, if I pronounce that correctly. They get their sandwich or whatever they're buying. The food is all kept hot. So it's just literally made up, given to the customer, and they're out. I'm told by Mr. Salmon, and I think it's right, the average turnaround time for a customer will be less than 2 to 3 minutes, so we can get them in and out. And as you'll see, if you do amend that to condition 13, the maximum number of people in the shop at any one time would be limited to eight customers. So we're looking just at collections and pre-ordered food, no deliveries, no dining after 11 o'clock. The customer base is simple. It's inclusive of workers from other late night venues who like the food at this premises. We did have a petition. Unfortunately, it's my fault. I couldn't download it yesterday and send it in, but there is a petition from both local people and other workers in the area. We say it could be argued, Chair, that actually having this restaurant open till later will allow people to be served quicker and leave the area in a timely fashion rather than linger around looking for somewhere else to buy food. Once they know this shop is open, they'll go there, and that will reduce the overall, shall we say, queuing and lingering in the area. There'll be no need, quick service, in and out. And that's what Mr. Salmon and his staff pride themselves on. Reason for the application is, as you would expect, post-COVID cost of living crisis that's hitting hospitality so badly. It's to meet customer demand, especially from the late night workers, to maintain the viability of the business in the current crisis. There'll be a minimum of 3 staff, quick turnaround, as I've said. They stop service currently at 23:45 on these nights. When Sunday to Wednesday would be 1:45. They'd stop service, have the shutter down by 5:02. And the lights out. Ditto on if you're minded to grant Thursday till Saturday and bank holiday Sundays. That would be service finishing at 1:45, shutter down by 1:55, finished by 2. So there's no service in the last quarter of an hour now, or if you extend the hours at all for us, no service during all times. In our submission,
you're a minute over.
Oh, sorry, I'll finish there. I think I've said all I want to say. I will just mention, if I may, that Mr. Riviere, in his representation, did mention, if you're not minded to grant the 2 o'clock, that 1 o'clock could be a possibility Thursday to Saturday. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, great, fantastic. So, Councillor Garbutt, any point of clarification at this stage that you'd like to raise?
Yeah, can I just quickly ask, you mentioned a petition. I wasn't clear on what that was for, what the petition was asking, or...
Fair enough, Councillor. Very briefly, it reads, for the time to be extended, we support the request for the licence to be extended to 2 AM, obviously those nights we've mentioned, for the sale of falafel and shawarma, for the quality of the food, hygiene, good service, etc. It's a petition in support.
Yeah, but that hasn't been submitted with the documents, has it?
No, Chair. I couldn't print it off. Okay. Well,
we can sort of mentally note that then.
Yeah, and just another point of clarity, just in the resident. Oh no, I'll get into that in the discussion. I've got a question about. Yeah, I'll get into that into the discussion part.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, I'm happy to move on at this stage. So maybe we could, if I could invite the licensing team, Amanda.
Chair, I just wanted to ask if you would like to clarify with the applicant's agent that the non-standard hours were not applied for, so we wouldn't be able to consider those as part of the application at this stage.
Did you hear that, Mr. Hawkins?
It's a bit bubbly on this end, but I presume you're referring to the bank holiday Sundays. Yeah. Are you too worried about that?
No, I'm all right.
No. If you feel you can't consider those, Councillor, that's fine.
Okay, fantastic.
So we'd just be looking Thursday to Saturday.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so Channing, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. You can see my representation on Appendix B2. it's mainly related to the premises being located in the special policy area and the extension of the conditions. Did speak with the applicant's consultant prior to this hearing, and he has clarified a few things. I feel there's still some question around delivery, even though delivery is not taking place at the moment. If it was to take place in the future, would there be some kind of regulation around that? And would the applicant be minded to, or would the committee consider placing a condition around not having deliveries? And then should deliveries be implemented in the future, they would have to come back to the committee to have the appropriate conditions put on the license.
Yeah.
I think that's
Channing, can
something-
I just ask you a question there? Sorry to interrupt, but just on the delivery side of things, because that is a red route along
Yeah.
there. So ultimately, there shouldn't be anybody stopping there at all at the end of the day. So how does that affect things? Maybe a PC
Well,
group can help us with that
that's
one.
part of the sort of query that I had, because sometimes what these premises will do is they will, like around the corner on Coronet Street, it goes to double yellow lines. So for example, if the delivery drivers were to park there for a little while and then be ferried out the deliveries from the premises to there, then that might be a way around it for them. But if that comes into play, how is that managed? And would they be willing to have a condition to prevent deliveries for the time being? And if they would like to do deliveries in the future, then they'll come back to the committee and make submissions about how they will manage appropriately that sort of activity so as not to undermine the objectives. In addition to that, Chair, again, the extension of the hours within our SPA is something for the committee to consider, given that it is a very busy part of our SPA, and how it will impact the local amenity and local residents that are in close proximity to the premises. But nothing further to add, Chair.
Okay, I've got a point of clarification, Councillor Garbett, unless you have. Do you have anything you want to ask it very briefly? You mentioned in your submission, Channing, that the applicant should consider reducing the hours sought to a 1 hour extension on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. I mean, I presume you've mentioned that because that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable about the application. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair, because I believe in their current license that they already got up to just beyond the core hours on the premises license. So
midnight, I think it is, isn't
if they can demonstrate that they can operate beyond the core hours, then they could then come back later on to sort of demonstrate their track record. I do note that the consultant has pointed out the operator has got a track record in a different borough, but this is our specific borough and we do have our specific issues. I do note as well that they have offered reduced hours on Sunday to Wednesday, and that does go some way to sort of alleviate some of our concerns. But it would really be at the discretion of the committee to grant the 2 a.m. hours. So nothing further to add there, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Are you okay with that, Councillor Garbett? Should we crack on? Okay, I'd like to invite PC Griggs now to come and make your representation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Much along the same lines as Channing, the venue's obviously on an extremely busy road in the middle of the Shoreditch SPA, with late night licensed venues lit more or less door to door all the way along Old Street and opposite. There is plenty of these are also food outlets as well. So there's many food outlets already there serving late into the night within the Shoreditch SPA. As Channing has pointed out as well, it's already slightly in excess of core hours. It is in the SPA, and it is, as the consultant has pointed out, Mr. Sampson has only been there since April, which helps us slightly because there were several breaches, quite a history of breaches at the venue before that. Obviously, we don't know how the venue operates in Camden. We've only just found that out, so we'd have spoken to colleagues in Camden to speak to them if we'd have known that. Same issues regarding delivery. Agree with Channing there. Perhaps a condition regarding the no delivery, because the red route would be an issue stopping, and it's just then going in and out. from there, how you're going to manage that. I think that's probably, but I said, again, the SIA does help us slightly. They have had a condition on it on their licence already that they would use one on a risk assessment basis, but obviously firming that up to definitely have one on those late nights does help again a bit more. I would also agree with Channing, perhaps that 1 o'clock at the weekends to give them a trial of operating that a little bit later might be a way to go. But as again, agreeing with Channing, it's your discretion, Chair. And it's mainly on policy that we're here. That's all I've got to add.
Okay, thank you very much, PC Griggs. So let's move into the discussion phase, and I'll just start it off with Councillor Garbutt. If you'd like to come in with some questions, points you'd like to make, points of clarification, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. So the question that I've been thinking of, and I think a couple of people have touched on this, is this issue around the operation and the complaints bit. So it's really good to hear that the pre-April were where the kind of issues with the license had been considered before, but the representation from the residents say that there was improvement from the end of 2021 to June 22. So that implies that things have kind of deteriorated again into the summer. And I just wondered if that's something that was reflected by either PC Griggs or licensing authorities' representations or understanding of the situation, because it sounds like we've got slightly different timescales of when there's been issues experienced, and just bringing in, you know, that resident representation. So I don't know who wants to pick that up first. Yeah, okay, great.
If I could, from a police licensing point of view, we've not had anything brought to our attention, but equally we've not been out as much as we'd like to have been at nights over the summer and the last month or so due to other commitments and festivals and different things during August and July, August, and then September. We are back out again, so we will be looking to see what's going on. But so we haven't had anything brought to our attention, but equally we haven't been out to have a look.
Yeah.
Anything
Anything else,
It
Councillor
would be the
Garbutt?
same from our side, Councillor. We haven't received any direct complaints in relation to this particular premises.
Councillor Garbutt, any other points of clarification?
Yeah, and just a further one about the consideration from the applicant of the door person also on the Thursday. I think they're only listed for the Friday and Saturday currently. So if that would be one of the nights with the later openings, would that also be considered as part of the... Got some nodding from... Yeah, okay, great. That's good to hear. And yeah, thank you for the additional information. I think that was really helpful in clarifying the responsibility around the dispersal point and how that was going to be managed. So that was helpful. I think that was my questions.
Okay, great. Mr. Hopkins, I would like to ask the applicant quite a serious question here, because we know that this is in the SPA and we know what the policy is at LP10. That you must demonstrate that the proposed activity and the operation of the premises will not add to the cumulative impact in the area. This is a very serious policy, LP10, and it's something that we have to really think carefully about. So my question is, in your application, why did you not include any additional steps to promote the 4 licensing objectives, and how you would not add to the cumulative impact in the area? In other words, more people hanging around, more potential for antisocial behaviour, more potential for drinking in the street, more potential for hanging around, more potential for noise pollution. I was a little bit disappointed that you hadn't addressed some of those in your application, bearing in mind that you know that this is an SPA. So this is your opportunity to come back to us and convince us that you're not going to cause problems, or your venue, your establishment's not going to cause any additional problems there. I hope that's okay.
Do you understand?
Not really. What you say?
There's a little bit of language difficulty, Chair. Can I try and help him?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Mr. Hopkins, you can come in if you like. I mean, you know your client.
On behalf of me to talk.
Yeah, it might be easier if I try, Chair. yes, with regards to the application, obviously they did it themselves. Didn't realise they had to seek professional help, and Mr. Salmon did the best he could. He's not experienced in filling in forms to that extent. I have offered a CIZ statement that maybe should have been on the application. I think he understands that now, so we have included that on the additional document. Basically, we set out the reasons why. I mean, this shop is not going to be playing music, and it's a fairly quiet place inside. We've limited the number of customers that are allowed inside at any one time to 8, and I think by having the door supervisor, and yes, to answer your colleagues' questions, we are now offering the door supervisor for the 4 nights, or sorry, the Thursday to Saturdays. We're not talking about the bank holidays, but Thursday to Saturday the doorman will be on duty. So we're going to have that aid there to aid in dispersal during the existing, and if you granted the full licensed hours, to aid in getting them in, served and out with a minimum of disturbance to the residents. We've got the dispersal policy to aid with that. So that's going to address, hopefully, the antisocial behaviour in the immediate vicinity. And there are other, I mean, I know myself, there are other door supervisors in that area who do tend to work together. This premises, we're quite happy to work with them to make sure that troublesome customers do not hang around, do not disturb the residents above. The noise from the premises itself, they're not going to be playing music or anything. It's just going to be a background where they go in, address the staff, get their food and leave. We hope, as I say, within that 2 to 3 minute framework. I don't really see we're going to get an increase in noise nuisance from the premises with those measures in place, the dispersal, the control over the shop. That you're not usually using ducting, are you? No, there's no, as I understand it, you've not got ducting at the back. Ducting to take no, there's no ducting to so we're not going to cause noise from extraction and all the rest of it. That's my understanding. The antisocial behaviour, yes, it's there, but they're not going to admit the drunk, heavily intoxicated people. That's their policy. So those won't be encouraged to linger in the area. They'll just be moved on by the doorman and out of the area. So they won't become customers to add to the problem. We've, as I say, I think the combination of dispersal policy, the door supervisor, the strict policy on closing procedures that Mr. Salmon's applied from day one, and he applies in Camden. In other words, they stop service 15 minutes before. Even with that 2 to 3 minutes, everybody's gone by 10 minutes before the terminal hour, and then they get their shutter down, their lights out. So we're not going to add to people hanging around. They're maintain the door. That's the whole purpose of having the doorman, if you grant the 2 o'clock or whatever, is to avoid people over queuing, spilling into the streets, into the pavement, obstructing the vehicles. I can confirm as well there'll be no deliveries. We would agree to a no delivery condition. So that removes that area of noise disturbance that Mr. Revere's raised and PC Griggs. We don't want that noise nuisance associated with it. And if people can't stop, then what's the point of getting a parking ticket for a start? So we won't have that added disturbance of people trying to barge in and get their food. So hopefully that answers the points that you've.
I mean, I suppose my point really was, at what point were you drafted in to kind of help him with this? I'm slightly nervous the applicant didn't fully comprehend the seriousness of LP10 when he submitted the application, and then you came along later to kind of submit some stuff further down the line, which is welcome. We need to seek reassurance really from the applicant himself that he really gets it. He really understands what is going on here, and I am personally sympathetic with the licensing officer here. In terms of the kind of 1 o'clock situation, Thursday to Sunday, and maintaining the 12 o'clock. So I'm just going to put that out there. I would ask your applicant to consider that proposition, that you stay at 12 until the Thursday to Saturday to 1 on a trial basis, so we know how you get on and you can come back. But I'm going to you can just think about that in the meantime. PC Griggs.
I'll explain that to you.
I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry, there we go. If just following on from how you're managing inside and limiting that till 8 o'clock, my concern is as bars start kicking out and more people are coming to the venue, how are they then managing people queuing either outside or turning them away and everything else? Where are they going to make them form queue? is a relatively narrow bit of pavement as well. So if you're going to have people waiting outside, how's that going to be managed? Or are you not going to? And
Yeah.
any-
Yeah, I think it's a good point, PC Griggs. I was going to ask you I mean, I've been down there, but I can't quite remember how large those pavements are. But did you hear that, Mr. Hopkins, about the pavement and kind of queuing and things like that? Did you hear the question from PC Griggs, sorry.
I did, Chair, yes, and I did speak to PC Griggs earlier, as I said. I've got another customer in the area, which PC Griggs knows about. So I have walked that road several times myself and seen how narrow the pavements are. We are mindful of that. That's why I think the committee or the applicant, when they filled in the original application, put on the no more than 8 customers in the shop at any one time. The doorman would have to move those people on if there's already 8. If you grant the variation to 1 or to 2, that limit will still apply. So there can't be more than 8 people in the shop. We don't want to queue outside. It's not conducive to the area. I think we all accept that. So they would have to move those people on and maybe tell them to come back later or whatever, later in the evening when the shop's not crowded. But you certainly can't have it outside. That's why we're conceding the condition on the no deliveries, because obviously that would further complicate it with bikes possibly stuck on the pavement and all the rest of it. There's no room there for bikes. Mr. Salmon accepts that the cars can't park there. So we've agreed to that, and we are very mindful of the narrowness of the pavement. At the other venue, we had these issues in the past, so I'm doubly mindful. I saw footage then of people running across the road from behind parked cars, all the rest of it, when they were worse for wear, shall we say. So fully mindful of it, and yes, we would take active steps, especially when the door supervisor's there. Other times we have nominated a member of staff to be tasked to monitor the outside and to discourage people from queuing and hanging around.
Yeah, Councillor Garbutt, you had your hand up there.
That was going to be my question. What happens on the evenings when the door person's not there? But you've just picked that up, saying that a staff member would be nominated, so that answered it.
Yeah. So, Mr. Hopkins, just going back to the point I made earlier about the hours. I mean, you can see from where I'm coming from in terms of LP10. It would give us the authority more confidence if we had a trial period just to see how the operator works with those hours to start with, and then come back. So it's a step-by-step process, which I think feels better for me. I suppose, how does your client feel about that is the next question.
I'll be honest, Chair. I have had a quick word with Mr. Salmon while PC Griggs was speaking about that. Whilst we would like what we've asked for, that goes without saying. The amended application. That's the point. Mr. Salmon would accept if the panel or the committee was only minded to grant 1 o'clock Thursday to Saturday. He would accept that.
Okay, great. Well, that's great to know. Thank you for that offer.
Thank you.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so I think Councillor Garbutt, if you're happy with where we're at in the discussion, we could maybe just move on now to closing remarks, if that's okay with you, unless you've got other points you'd like to make.
No, I think I've covered everything. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. That's great. So, if I could just ask the licensing team to come back just with your closing remarks, please, and how you feel about your proposal, in fact, of the 1 o'clock, now that the applicant's willing to accept your proposal. Channel.
Chair, with what's been suggested with regards to additional conditions and amendments and restricting the extension to Thursday to Saturday, it goes a long way to alleviate some of our concerns. But again, any changes are at the discretion of the committee.
Okay, thank you very much. And PC Griggs, how do you feel about this now?
Same as Channing, to be fair. It does certainly go a long way. Certainly the extra conditions and the reduction of hours does alleviate our concerns slightly, and it obviously gives them a chance to show they've got a track record of operating a bit later. So yeah, it would certainly alleviate a lot of our concerns there. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And to Mr. Hopkins, would you like to come back? I mean, I think you've been very gracious in offering all these different elements, on deliveries, on the time, and all that kind of thing, and the SIAs. So we are very thankful to the applicant for that. So do you want to come back in, please, and just with your final remarks?
Yes, I'd ask the panel the subcommittee to grant the hours. Obviously, I mean, I've got to do that, but we're happy to go along with the 1 o'clock Thursday to Saturday. And I know from your colleagues' views, go back and let them get their track record in Old Street, and maybe come back to you in 6 months or whatever and demonstrate it and have another go. So we're happy with that, and grateful to Mr. Revere for mentioning that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. So that concludes that part of the agenda. So let me just flick up to my agenda. So if I could ask you guys, the participants of this one, to leave now, that would be fantastic, and we'll get on with the next one. So thank you to everyone for that. So now we are moving on to agenda item 6, which is the variation of premises license, Turquoise Kitchen, 75 Mare Street. So if I could invite the licensing officer, please, to outline the report for item 6.
Thank you, Chair. The second item we are going to consider for this afternoon is for an application under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 for a variation of the premises license for the Turquoise Kitchen, 75 Mare Street, to include late night refreshment from 2300 to 23:30 Monday to Wednesday, from 2300 to midnight Thursday, and from 2300 to 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday, as stated within the report. Representation remains from the planning and licensing, and I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed for that. And if I could invite the applicant, please, to present your case in support of your application. I presume that's Hassan.
Hello, Chair. Thank you.
Hi there. You've got 5 minutes, Hassan.
Yeah, no problem. We opened Turquoise Kitchen in February 2019, and right after a year, we got hit by COVID. And so ever since, the business hasn't been really settled for us. And where we're located is Mare Street, Main Street, Mare Street on a high road, just before Cambridge Heath. And to my left of my business, I have NT's Loft on Bockham Street. I have Forest Gate Brewery. I have Nettle 360, and I have Mare Street Market, which are open from various different hours. Mare Street Market to 1 a.m. and then NT's Loft to 2:30. Forest Gate Brewery to 2:30, and these are I'm just saying the weekend hours, basically Friday and Saturdays at the moment. And then NT Nettle 360 open to 12:30. And the closest competition we have is like a kilometer down to my right, and then again another 800 meters to my left. And the main reason we want to open is just after everything that's happened with COVID, and just because we opened just before COVID, we've been quite unsettled as a business in our income, and it's been quite a struggle, to be honest. And everything it's been really difficult with all the expenses which has risen and keep on rising at the moment. And we just want to make that a little bit extra something to save the business, to be honest. And I'm aware there's hospice across me, and there's the Beck Street, which is the main problem with the planning. But the closest property from Beck Road to mine is 50 meters. And the thing with hospice is the main building for the patients is back end of the building. The front end grand area is used for is rented out to a nursery, which is operating from morning to afternoons and finishes by 5 p.m. And so the bottom end of the hospice is not vacant during the day, during the evenings at late hours. And this side of the hospice is mainly used for offices as well. And secondly, this my main issue was with the planning, and planning said that I have a extraction, and the extraction is actually flat on my roof. The motor that actually does all the jobs flat on my roof on the right side of the building, so it's not connected to the building to disturb any people who live upstairs. And also, I'm just trying to think if there's any other problems. And the thing is, people tend to linger around quite a lot around this area, such as there's a off license which has 24 hours license for alcohol and soft drinks. And so we as a business, we don't have a lot on the main street, so we don't have a lot of business and don't have a lot of people staying outside and walking around. Our main customers are people who are local, take their food and just go home. We don't, and most people who are lingering around just waiting for their cab to come and to leave it as well. So we don't have a lot of other places to go once they leave. So we never had the issue people staying outside on the street and, you know, looking for other places to go. And yeah, the main issue for the licensing could be our request till 2 a.m. But at worst, I would like them to consider at least 1 a.m. for the business, so I can make something out of it. And I think that's all I got to say for now. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much for that, and thank you for that offer. That is noted. Any points of clarification at this point? Just very briefly, Councillor Garbett.
Thanks, Hassan. Just clarity on if you're proposing any limit on number of people in the.
The only time that we don't tend to get a lot of, like, you know, 20 or 30 people at once or queuing outside at all, and during this season at all. It could happen during the summer, but that'll be another issue. But we would not like accept anything more than 8 or 10 people at once, and we do have room for it because our ceilings are actually higher, but we insulated it and brought the ceiling down, so it doesn't bother any tenants upstairs. And as you can see from the period of 28 days, we didn't have any locals complaining about our licensing application.
Okay, great. Well, does that satisfy that your question there? Great. Okay, so if I'd just like to move on now to the responsible authorities and Mr. Chewett.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. So the representation that I made is at Appendix B2 in today's agenda. So within that, I just set out that the proposed hours are beyond what's set out in LP3 core hours, and concern that any additional hours of activity could have a negative impact on the promotion of the licensing objectives. And in that, we just invite applicants to make to identify any risks in the areas and then address those in their application. Heard from Mr. Cic in his submission that there are some other late night premises in the local area. The St Joseph Hospice obviously is opposite, and reference has been made to Mayor Street Market, which is just north of the site, and other premises which are to the south of the site also. One thing I did find, and I've made reference to it in here, is the planning status. So we do have LP5 within the council's policy, and what I did find was that it was refused planning permission for later hours, and then an appeal to planning inspector was also dismissed. So I do think this is quite important information for the subcommittee to consider today. So I'll leave it there for now, Chair, and would come back to this in the discussion phase.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chewett, for that one. Step 5 is other persons, and there aren't any other persons today, so I think we can move straight on to the discussion. And I'd like to invite Councillor Garbett at this point to come in with further questions and points of clarification before I ask some.
Oh, Amanda.
Oh, Amanda.
I'm happy for Councillor Garbett to go first. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's all really helpful information. I think my first question, I guess, was going to be around, I think it links together the two questions. One would be to Mr. Chewett around, are you assured by the further information you've had today around the identification of risks and how those are addressed? Because one of the bits I wanted to pick up was I was seeking a bit more clarity in the area around kind of keeping people safe and what the premises was of training to kind of prevent crime, and kind of serving intoxicated people and those kind of things. I just wondered if, there's anything you could say that you were seeking to have clarity on in that area, and then we can hear from the applicant as well.
Not so much clarity. I guess quite familiar with that area. So the premises that Mr. Savage is referred to is correct, that there are late hours, Main Street Market, NT's Loft. He talked about Forest Road Brewery, which is not very far away, and a few other late night refreshment premises that are within close proximity to the site. So that site isn't, that area isn't somewhere that's completely alien to late night activity. But I just think with the status of the planning permission, I do think that's something that just has to be, the discretion of the licensing committee has to be engaged there, just because of it was refused planning permission by our colleagues in the planning service, but then beyond that it was appealed, and that appeal was dismissed, although some years have elapsed since that took place. But it is, I think, a key consideration for this particular application.
We haven't got them here, have we? Are you able to speak a bit more about the...
I attached, so I attached it. It's attached to my representation.
I've seen the report.
Okay.
I just don't know if you want...
I suppose, Mr. Stewart, the point is with the planning. I just wanted to clarify, as we're talking about planning, that the hours were 8 to 2300 Monday to Saturday and 10 to 2 on Sunday bank holidays, it says here. So it was to 11 Monday to Saturday. Oh, sorry, 10 to 10. I got you. Those were the hours, yeah? So 10 to 11 and 10 to 10 on a Sunday. Is that correct?
So is that? Are you asking?
I'm asking you. Yeah, I'm asking you. I mean, I've got it here, but I'm just asking for confirmation that is the case. That the planning refused them on core hours, essentially, is what I'm saying. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you surprised at that?
No, sorry. Apologies. So sorry, Chair. So on page, actually,
I've got 83 on the online version.
So in my representation, where I attached the planning permission, so the cover letter is there, and then the decision notice from planning is there.
It talks about the condition in dispute as number 3, which states that the A3 use hereby permitted may only be carried out between 8 to 2300 Monday to Saturday and 10 to 10 p.m. on Sundays and bank holidays. So those are core hours, yeah?
Yeah.
They're actually below core hours, in fact, from Thursday to Saturday.
That's right, but a variation to extend the hours from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. the next day, Friday and Saturday, is the one that was refused, which is essentially what's been applied for.
Oh, okay, I got you. Yeah, so that's further down.
Yeah.
Point 2 under the decision. Yeah, I got you. Okay, so that's good. We clarified that one. Okay, Hassan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I tried to contact in planning in regards to these because when they first arrived to the scene, most of this area hasn't changed as much. I tried to contact them. I'd send them emails, but I haven't got any response. I got them on the phone after a long wait, and they said that I can try find someone early in the morning in between 10 and 12 in the offices in Hillman Street in Hackney Council. And when I went, there was no one from planning either. So I've never had any contact to discuss the issues with them and try to resolve it with them. And in my latest email to them, I requested at least the supervisor to contact me to discuss the issues, because whoever I speak to, we just it's a dead end, and I just never can get in contact with them myself. And today they're not present to talk to as well.
Yeah, because obviously, Hassan, if we were to grant this, for example, you wouldn't actually be able to operate anyway, because you don't have the planning. That's the problem. So we'll have to be a planning informative on the the result or whatever, so that you go and get your planning. But I think again, your offer of 1 p.m. Again feels conciliatory to me. But we can obviously discuss that, Councillor Garbutt and I, when after this meeting closes. So any further questions, Councillor Garbutt, that you have? Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. I think I just want to clarify here that none of the hours past core hours can be considered, because the planning permission won't be granted anyway, because I don't know whether or not the applicant realises that, also has taken on board the planning inspector's decision that they've been refused the planning permission. So
yeah, there is a quandary here.
How are they going to, even if you're wanting to grant the application, I don't think you can, because, easily, because of the fact that they're not good. They're not going to be able to operate still.
Okay, Mr. Stewart, do you want to come in on this point, because there is a bit of a sort of conundrum here?
Yeah, I don't think it's a case of the planning inspector didn't saying that it could never be approved. I think when you look at paragraph 10 of the planning inspector's conclusion, there was reference to other premises late at night, but no details were supplied. He noted that there were no objections from adjoining neighbours, but it didn't indicate an absence of harm. So it looks to me like it was more a case of there was a lack of information in the appeal, rather than a absolute flat out, no chance of it being granted. Which is, so my suggestion really to Mr. Sevich was, look, just go and make a new planning application, and make sure that if he does it himself or his consultant does it on his behalf, they address what the shortcomings in the previous planning application and the appeal. I think that's more what the issue is, rather than it just being a flat no. If planning colleagues were on this call, I would imagine that they would say, we would need a new application before we assess. They wouldn't be able to make an assessment without an actual application, because then they start to look at it and ask for additional information.
Yeah,
if it's not,
but as the licensing committee, Mr. Stewart, we can still make a decision, right?
Of course.
We can make a decision, but obviously, Hassan, you wouldn't be able to use that decision because of your lack of planning. But we can still make a decision.
That's right. That's right. And I should add, of course, that the two regimes are separate. Licensing and planning are two separate regimes, but they are, of course, linked, and we do have that planning policy in place.
So Hassan, do you want to come back? You've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The problem is, because I have a planning already, I need to make amends to my planning, and the only way to go through with this and to be able to talk to planning and get more information about what needs to be done. But the issue was, as I said, I never could get contact with them. I've sent them emails. I went to Hillman Street to the offices, and there's no one there, and there's no reply to my emails either. Even the person who from planning made a representation, I sent them an email in regards to this, and they didn't return to me either. So I just didn't have a chance to get to talk to them at all in any instances to be able to resolve this issue before it came to you. Because when I spoke to someone on the phone, they said that this issue could be solved before, even without going to the committee, and it can be solved internally. But as I said, I never met anyone from planning, or only had literally nothing, no reply, or no one at the offices either. So it's quite difficult to get hands-on on them and talk to them.
Okay, well, maybe we might be able to help there, possibly, with that sort of contact, Mr. Stewart. But there might be a way of us contacting planning just to help Hassan, get that sorted out. Would that be a possibility?
I'm sure my planning colleagues would just say that he has to make a planning application to vary the conditions attached to that planning permission, because then there are timescales for dealing with planning applications.
But I think what Hassan's saying is he just wants a bit of help, really, a bit of hands-on.
Planning also do a pre-application advice service, which is a paid service, so could do that as well. Obviously I'm not in the planning service, so I can't really speak for them. I can't commit them to being able to ask questions. But what I do know is that they will expect a planning application if it's an issue about conditions,
Yeah.
and then if it's an advice, a matter of needing advice, you can go for the pre-application
Yeah.
advice service.
Okay, great. Councillor Garbutt, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it comes back to some of the things we've raised here as well, isn't it? About wanting to understand some of the ways that the operation will help within those hours. And I think it's that clarity that would be helpful in that application.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we've raised here. Yeah.
Yep. And Hassan, I'd just like to ask you about the businesses kind of either side of your establishment. I'm on Google Maps here and I can see there's a Chinese takeaway. Is that still operating?
That's operating till 11:30, as much as I'm aware. That's only that shuts at 11:30.
Okay, and then you've got a dry cleaners
That finishes around 5 or 6.
on the corner, and you've got is that a dry cleaners I can see beside you as well?
No, it's the hospice charity shop, which
Oh, the charity
closes at
shop. Yeah.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, and then further down beyond that, going back down to Hackney Central, there's a few little buildings there. What do they do?
They're empty. They're not occupied at all at the moment. And I think they're waiting for planning permission to get a new rebuild and new builds in there.
Okay. Well, unless you've got any further point of clarification, Councillor Garbutt, we can go to closing remarks. Hassan, I just want to come back on the point about the 1 o'clock, because obviously that makes me feel more comfortable, particularly in light of what the planner said about the 2 o'clock application. And it's good for us to have some kind of alignment there. I mean, are you still content? Would you still be content with 1 o'clock? I mean, would that?
I'll be content with 1 o'clock, but if it's 2, it'd be nowadays. Like, I'll be content with it. But the thing is, I wouldn't mind if you put me on a probation till 1 o'clock and see if there's any issues, and then reconsider at 2 o'clock and put me on probation on that thereafter as well, and check how everything goes.
It would be good for us, Suba, to understand, and maybe you could do this in the meantime, is to understand some of the venues around there, at what times they close, in within, I don't know, reasonable, like 100 meters or 200 meters or whatever. Because I know that you've got, is it London Fields Brewery at the back? I think they stop serving at 10:30. Isn't that right?
They are served. They're a bit more further down from me, so they're not close to me. But my closest ones, such as Forest Road, which is not even, it's less than 50 meters away, 75 meters away from me. And then these are all, they're literally located in one little key location. MT's, Forest Road, Network 360, and Mare Street Market. This is within 100 meters, all next to each other.
Yeah, I think, Hassan, that feels comfortable to me. I can't speak for Councillor Garbutt, but for me, that feels comfortable to 1 o'clock as a sort of test bed trial period. But in the meantime, I think you need to take Mr. Chewett's advice and get some pre-application advice from the council. That should be relatively straightforward to do, and then reapply full planning application for these new hours, and then you'll be sorted out on both fronts. So anyway, if I could just ask any final remarks, closing remarks from Mr. Chewett.
Yeah, nothing really further to add at this stage, Chair. Obviously, we understand the difficult circumstances that Mr. Cevic is having to work with economically and post-pandemic, etc. But we do obviously still have this policy in place. So I do think it's just important to bring that to the discussion.
Okay, fantastic, great. And Hassan, you want to come back with some closing remarks?
No, it's, as I said, it's just been a bit of a struggle to contact someone to get the planning sorted out with. I just spoke to someone on the phone before, but other than that, I have no other information. They said that I should make a new plan rather than just make amends to my planning, and that was with regards I needed information on.
I mean, it may be worth thinking about some pre-application advice.
I am now.
And I think there's a form you can fill online for that, Mr. Chewett. And isn't that right? You can go online and just fill in the pre-application form, can't you?
Yeah, I think planning offer different kinds of pre-application advice for householders, major schemes, commercial schemes, etc. So it would be one of those. It'd be one of those sorts of.
Yeah, I think you can do it online, Hassan.
Probably online,
Alright.
I would imagine. Yeah.
I'll have a look.
Have a look. And Amanda, you'd like to come in?
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to clarify. So the hours are still going to be the same apart from Friday and Saturday, which he's now looking to, or he's offering to go to 1 o'clock. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Excellent. Okay, well, I think that's it. Councillor Garbutt, if you're content at this stage, we can maybe just wrap up, and there's no further business. So thank you very much, Hassan, for coming.
Thank you
And
very much, Chair.
hopefully, you know, in a few months' time, you'll be all sorted.
Hopefully, hope so.
Okay,
It'll be a big
great.
relief. Thanks for
Okay,
your
well,
time.
thank you everybody for attending the call, and all those participants could log off now, and then Councillor Garbutt and the officers and I can deliberate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Bye.
Chair.
Thank you.